Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. International Monetary Fund's Executive Board has approved a $7 billion bailout package under the Extended Fund Facility for Pakistan, and the first tranche of $1.1 billion is expected to be released by 30th of September. Now, Pakistan and the IMF reached a staff-level agreement regarding this particular bailout package in July. Already, Pakistan has successfully completed a 9-month, $3 billion standby arrangement with the IMF. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has expressed satisfaction over the approval of this particular bailout package and has also thanked the IMF and the friendly countries for their support, saying, let me quote him, "The approval shows government's commitment to implement economic reforms." The Prime Minister at the same time has reaffirmed that this would be Pakistan's last IMF program. At the same time, IMF Chief Kristalina Georgieva has expressed satisfaction over the positive trajectory of Pakistan's economy. Pakistan's Finance Minister Mohammad Aurangzeb has said that this IMF program is designed to help Pakistan implement essential economic reforms aimed at stabilizing country's financial situation. This important development on the economic front, what sort of an implication it would have on the future trajectory of Pakistan's economy? To understand all that, we are honored to have been joined in the studio by Dr. Shujat Farooq, Chief of Research, Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. Dr. Farooq, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to have been joined by Mr. Sultan Ali Haider, political economist. Mr. Haider, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. On Skype at the same time, we are honored to have been joined by Dr. Khaqan Najeeb, former advisor, Ministry of Finance. Dr. Najeeb, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Both of you gentlemen in the studio, if you allow me, let me begin the discussion with Dr. Khaqan Najeeb. Dr. Khaqan, now, how does this IMF's approval reflect on Pakistan's economic progress? How significant is it at this particular point in history, when Pakistan is faced with economic challenges, and all those efforts by the authorities here in Pakistan, the government, in order to put in difficult economic reforms and stabilize the overall outlook of economy in the country?
Jawad, thanks for having me on your show. Whenever we've spoken, I have always maintained it is prudent to run Pakistan's economy with IMF's engagement. Otherwise, Pakistan would find it challenging to collect $26 billion that are needed for FY25. Out of that, $12.7 billion are rollovers with the friendly countries, which also happened because we had an IMF engagement. $4 billion is commercial financing. That also gets reprofiled because we are in an IMF engagement. And the rest, multilateral flows. ADB just offered $2 billion in terms of new projects, so on and so forth. So that's thing number one. The number two important part is that what you've seen out of the engagement is a certain kind of stability. You can call it macro stability. And in easier words, how does that impact the people of Pakistan? The inflation, which was running at 38% when we were derailing the program in May 23, is down to 9.6% last month. Pakistan's current account went into surplus last month. FY24 also saw just a few $100 million of current account deficit. And so we have brought it to a level where we can finance it. And that's the important part. Number three, what you have seen is that consequently our reserves today, I was just looking at the State Bank numbers, are hovering at about $9.5 billion, covering little more than 2 billion, 2 months of Pakistan's import. So that gives comfort. So let me first say, how does this affect people? Petroleum product prices are down, rupee has stabilized. So you have, I think 24 to 30 rupees reprieve there. What you have also seen is that the stock exchange, if you invested money there, you've made 80% return, and that return is in dollar terms. So that's great. You've seen the policy rate drop by 450 BPS to 17.5. So Jawad, if you want to go buy a car today, your monthly installment would be much less than what it would be at 22%. So, that's how the economy is played out. But having said that, That does not mean that the other high frequency indicators on which we have our eye, meaning cement sales, car sales, auto sales, our petroleum product sales, our sales of electricity, have not risen, and in fact in some cases have fallen, which means that the broader economy, the manufacturing, is not behaving so well because we have had to slow down the economy to make sure that our inflation comes down to levels, into single digits.
So what is
On the
required, Dr. Khaqan Najeeb, for the broader economy to work well after these indicators that you have already mentioned, specifically when you talk about that inflation also coming down as compared to the same period in the last year? We've also seen that reduction into the basis point by the State Bank of Pakistan. When you talk about the broader economy not working so well, what's required for that, especially after the approval of this particular program by the IMF Executive Board?
So just one more thing which has been good for the people, because in the end, all the economic policy making is for the prosperity of the people. Our agriculture last year grew at about 6%. That has helped food inflation come down to much, much lower levels than was generally expected. And in some cases, we've seen a reduction in prices also. On the other side, the vulnerabilities of the economy, the structural challenges of the economy, which means the following. It is important to explain when we use these big words. The business environment stays difficult. The economic governance stays difficult. There is a large government footprint which needs to be tackled. Compared to our peers, our investment to GDP at 13% is uncomfortable. Our tax base, and the government has made at least a pronouncement that it wants to go and tax all sectors and create vertical and horizontal equity, stays narrow. The fairness has to be created, and that hurts our fiscal sustainability. So, all these things. So, Jawad, here's my second take now. I've always said go to the IMF. Now, my second take is I just wrote a paper. It's titled Breathing Space. Part of it was published by Dawn a few weeks ago. You have bought yourself breathing space, you've bought yourself time, you've bought yourself macro stability. Now use this time to do the energy sector reforms, the investment reforms, the expenditure reforms, the reforms on re-regulating the economy, the reforms where the fiscal sustainability is much better. Do the reforms where the work that is to be done by provinces is devolved to the provinces and is not replicated at the federal level. Your growth this year, let's say, is about 2.5 to 3%. You want to next year, you should be aiming with these kind of tailwinds of structural work at 5%. Your current account, I think, would stay in check as long as our exports keep rising to the tune of 10 to 15%, and remittances have done well. Lots of Pakistanis have gone abroad. That's a fact that has been conveyed by the government agencies themselves. So you've seen this $3 billion mark hit on the remittances. So you're comfortable there. But these reforms on these sides are really necessary in the next 3 to 5 years. On the longer term, you must realize.
Dr. Khaqan Najeeb, now reforms on all these fronts. Now we've got that breathing space, number of areas that you've mentioned to bring in reforms, including the fiscal reforms, the energy sector reforms, re-regulating the economy. Where to start from? In this particular span of 37 months, when Pakistan has this $7 billion extended fund facility, where to start from? Or do you think the reforms must be brought in simultaneously in all the sectors?
So the next 37 months are more challenging than the last 2 months when you were negotiating. Pakistan has been on the treadmill of IMF 24 times in its life. Pakistan has only completed one such facility in its life, which is the 1316 facility. And the reason I know that is that I anchored that facility for Pakistan. So you must realize that first challenge is that the agreed benchmarks, the indicative targets, and the quantitative performance criteria with the fund are met. any derailment of the program in the next 37 months will cause uncertainty, will cause discomfort to the economy. So that's
Right.
rule number one going forward. The first challenge will come on 30th of September, and you can take me again on the 1st of October. If we are able to meet the target that we set on the FPR, then we are, you know, home free for the first quarter, I would think. But if we aren't, then we would start to,
What does
do.
the trend depict? What does the trend depict? There's been an increase in the revenue collection, also an increase in the FBR tax collection, as
The
per the
problem is,
last month's economic outlook report.
correct. There has been a substantive increase. Given the slow moving economy, the increase is good. But the problem is that we have to increase 39% from last year. I think that target itself is on the higher side. So we have to collect 1,220 billion rupees in September. I think the trend is that the overall target would fall short by more than 100 billion rupees when we end up the first quarter. But that's all right. I think we should be able to convince the fund that, this is a shortfall in the 13 trillion that we are about to collect. And, some current expenditure, some PSDP, some provincial help should be able to bridge this instead of going into a new taxation, because that would create a signal which for the current certainty of the economy would be not a great signal. So I
So
really hope that this can
what
be
about
handled.
bringing in all those untaxed sectors into the tax net, including that of retailers, wholesalers, agriculture, and property, as per the understanding of the finance minister? Do you think that is going to have a considerable effect on the overall collection of the taxes?
All great ideas. You cannot say that property being taxed at 14% today and Jawad's salary, I hope you're in the higher bracket, is being taxed at 35%. And a non-salary doctor like my father would be getting taxed at 39%. I think
Right, Dr. Khaqan Najeeb, unfortunately, I have to cut you short over here. I'll have to go for a quick news break, and we'll resume the discussion after that. Welcome back to Views on News. We are discussing in today's episode the important development on the economic front. The IMF Executive Board has approved a $7 billion bailout package under the EFF for Pakistan. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has expressed satisfaction over this approval, and also some positive statements that came from IMF Chief Kristalina Georgieva. We are honored to have been joined in the studio by Mr. Sultan Ali Haider, political economist. Mr. Sultan is also joined by Dr. Shujat Farooq, Chief of Research, Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. Let's talk about the significance of this approval. Mr. Sultan Ali Haider, when we talk about there has been expression of satisfaction on the part of Prime Minister, it has also thanked IMF, its chief, and the friendly countries in their support for Pakistan's bringing Pakistan's economy towards stability. How critical was this approval at this particular point in time, and what future course of action do you foresee during the next span of 37 months in order to bring more economic stability in the country?
You see, first of all, thank you for inviting me. It's always crucial, as we can see in terms of Pakistan's political stability also. Every time there's an IMF program which is near completion and the country is anticipating a new program, so there's a lot of uncertainty. That uncertainty has a huge impact on the exchange rates, which puts so much of pressure on the economy. And once an IMF program is approved and it is there, certainly there's a lot of calm, and then the government and the country and the economy and people can go on for a certain time. So it was very crucial. In terms of larger perspective, there are three factors, usually in terms of statecraft, if you say so. One is the political factor, political stability. The other is the security angle. Third is the economic angle. So in terms of Pakistan right now, we are facing security issues, political instability. but at the same time this economic stability coming in. So this gives a lot of respite. So it was very, very important for us at this point in time. Secondly, again, in terms of us getting this program, for the last couple of months, there was an uncertainty that was brewing because IMF sort of kept on delaying. It kept on kicking the can down the road on what will be the conditionalities, when will it happen, when it will not happen. So I believe a lot of role was played, as the Prime Minister has also mentioned.
It was already this staff level agreement was reached between IMF and Pakistani authorities back in July. So it was also expected by the end of September, as Finance Minister has already put it that way. And by the end of September, here we got that Executive Board's approval. So on this particular front, there hasn't been any delay.
If I can say from purely from a political economy angle, right? So while it was there, so signing was not happening. The reason we see that the Prime Minister also thanked the chief, right? So friendly countries coming on board, that was very important, because even now, if you see the program of the $25 billion, half of the amount has to get rolled over now continually every year for the next 36 months. So that means those three countries have to be China, UAE, Saudi. So they have to be on board with us. So when those countries are taking a call on us, so it required.
So they've already been on board with us, and Prime Minister has specifically thanked those friendly countries, those three countries that you specifically mentioned over here. The Prime Minister has also mentioned those. So with this particular approval, don't you think there would naturally be more confidence for as the understanding of these friendly countries is concerned? So it will naturally become easier for Pakistan, even if the rollovers are required from those that particular amount, $25 billion.
So half of the amount. So that's exactly what I'm saying. That now there's so much confidence, because now we can see that for the next 3 years, the three countries are on board. So it's a huge achievement on the government side, because not for 1 year, not for this time on, for next 3 years, those three countries are on board. IMF is on board. So when new investors are coming in, new creditors are coming in, who we are going to international market to get some commercial credit also, right? So they believe the country has a plan, and that plan is to be implemented. So next 36 months are important, that we keep on following and implementing the plan. So it is
implementation of the plan.
Implementation of the plan.
How is it going to happen? How do you foresee? What would be your recommendations? Let me bring in Dr. Farooq into the discussion also. Dr. Farooq, the Prime Minister says the approval shows government's commitment to implement economic reforms. Finance Minister Mohammad Aurangzeb says this particular program is designed to help Pakistan put in those economic reforms in order to bring in the economic stability. Firstly, how crucial was it to get this particular approval, and where do you foresee the road or the trajectory on the economic front onwards for the next 37 months?
Yeah, thank you. You know that we require a long-term plan, and this plan covers some 37 months, and we have $7 billion. And you know that this is our 25th plan, and that cover the highest amount. We started first plan in 1958. So I think you know that whenever we design such plan, because you know that staff level agreement that was started in April, May, and you know that there was some 3-month delay. So certain benchmark has been set. So that is quite clear that in next 3 years, when we will execute this plan, all the, as Sultan Sahab has said, that all our bilateral partners, and you know that our 70% of foreign loan, that is bilateral, mainly from China, Saudi Arabia and UAE. So you know that they have been on board on this, you know that. So certain benchmark have been set. So that is quite clear that in next 3 you know that year, we will definitely implement the plan. So you know that going on the way forward, you know that that is one challenge that previously, as Khaqan Sahab has said, that we signed 25 agreements, and we successfully completed only 1 agreement. So I think this is also crucial for us, that we must be too serious to give trust to our bilateral partners as well as the multilateral partners.
So, when we talk about the completion of the programs with the IMF, so we recently had the completion of the standby arrangement also. Doesn't that fall in the ambit of that completion that you are referring to?
Yeah, but you know that was short-term plan.
Right.
So you know that there was interim government, then there was election. So that's why you know that IMF arranged some 9-month plan.
Okay,
so I think for the
doesn't
government,
that give us an understanding of when that particular standby arrangement was agreed upon, Pakistan avoided a default. Right at that particular time, the danger of default was imminent at that particular time. So there was a breathing space that was created, and that happened under the government, which was previously also led by then Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Then we had that caretaker government that you have just mentioned. We have the government now here led by, of course, Mr. Shehbaz Sharif. For the next 37 months, almost to be, it happens to be 3 years span of time. Now, keeping in view that record of those 9 months when the SBA was agreed upon and those stringent measures which had to be brought in and implemented by the authorities, given that track record, what do you foresee for the next 37 months, given the leadership stays same?
I am quite you know that optimistic, because you know that today we have signed this 37-month plan that is based on that 9-month plan, where government took lot of hard decision. For example, you can see that I think 1.8 trillion revenues have been generated. There were certain subsidies that have been removal. So that are positive steps that government have taken. So I think that leadership is quite clear that and as Prime Minister have said that let's hope that this should be the last our plan, and we should stabilize our economy.
That is exactly the point that I was about to ask you a question about.
Yeah.
When Prime Minister has reaffirmed that particular desire, of course, and he has said it would be the last IMF program for Pakistan. Now, to make it the last IMF program for Pakistan, what's required?
Yeah, you know that if you look the aim of this 37-month plan, that is quite clear that where we should have to take certain structural reforms. First is that we have to ensure macro stability, and I think we are moving toward macro stability. You can see that growth is reviving, inflation is coming down, our primary surplus, that is positive. You know that was deficit, and right now it is 1,000 positive. Government is aiming that it should be increased from 1% to 3.5%. So you know that first is that we have to make resilience growth. So resilience growth means that we have to increase our revenues, we have to reduce our expenses, and second, we have to move toward competitiveness. So that is quite clear. Second, you know that is SOEs management. So you know that there are a lot of leakages in the economy in the shape of, you know, that whether it could be taxes, whether it could be SOEs. So that is SOEs. Another thing is that we have to broaden our tax base, and as you know that Finance Minister have said that, you know, that this is the only country where we have the concept of filer and non-filer. So let's manage the economy, digitize the economy, broaden the tax base, and include all those sectors that are not part of tax, like for example, you can see real estate, you can see agriculture, you know that. So we have to make all these reforms. And last, you know that there are two things, that is we have to ensure competitiveness, we have to ensure human capital, and second, we have to boost our investment. Investment, you know that on one front we are focusing on SIFC. So basically SIFC is focusing on foreign investment. On the other hand, we have to mobilize our domestic resources. So you know that as Khaqan said that our investment to GDP ratio is just 13%. So lot of saving investment is dumping in the country that have to mobilize.
So when you talk about the mobilizing the local investment, domestic investment, I'll come to that particular point also. Let's specifically talk about broaden the tax base, digitizing the economy, bringing those untaxed sectors into the tax net, including the retailers, as mentioned by the Finance Minister, wholesalers, agriculture and property. Now let's take a quick look at the numbers. The economic indicators, particularly when you talk about the FBR revenue, it increased 22.7% as per the report that was generated last month. When Finance Minister talks about 29% increase, when we specifically talk about this particular increase, isn't it considerable? And when we are going to tax these and bringing these sectors into the tax net, don't you think it's going to have a considerable impact on the overall revenue generation?
Yeah, Joseph, you can see that tax revenues increased by 23% in last year, non-tax revenues increased by 78%, and similarly primary surplus, that is close to 1,000 billion. So that is a good thing. But on the other hand, you have to see that our growth is not sufficient. So sometimes, for example, if your growth is not sufficient and we impose more taxes, so definitely it could slow down the economy. So that is a big challenge in next 37 months as well, that we have to successfully implement this IMF program, and rather than imposing more taxes on existing, that
okay,
particular.
So that was the point.
Yeah.
When you specifically mention of increasing the taxes, what do you mean by that? Could you elaborate that one in detail? Because here the finance minister is talking of broadening the tax net, or broadening the tax base by bringing in all those sectors which have been untaxed in the past. To mention those wholesalers, retailers, property, as well as the agriculture.
So one thing is that let's increase the tax. So you can see that there is increased tax in electricity, gas. So overall, that you can see that the last high inflation in Pakistan, that was also due to certain hard decisions that we took in 9 month structural program. Broaden the tax base is that don't increase the tax, but implement the tax in those areas that are usually excluded. For example, you can see that agriculture and wholesale retail sectors, these contribute 45% in GDP. But they just contribute 2% in taxes. Same you can see that real estate is quite big area in Pakistan, where annually some $32 billion investment that is coming. But that tax is quite minimal. So these are the things where, for example, similarly wholesale retail. So I think we have to digitize the economy. Every person, they have to pay the taxes. We have to overcome subsidies. For example, let's do the targeted subsidies, and in this program it has been also envisioned that let's implement comprehensively the social protection program. So social protection program is some sort of subsidies
through
which
social protection program or the social safety nets. I'll come to that particular point. Now, Mr. Sultan Ali Haider, when we talk about the measures the government had to bring in and implement in order to meet those conditions, we have seen also at that particular time it was a very narrow corridor for the government in order to steer the country's economy through that particular narrow corridor, keeping in line with those tougher conditions set by the IMF under the SBA, also keeping in view that the masses are not burdened. Over the next 37 months, what are your recommendations for the authorities in order to steer through that corridor sagaciously with prudent measures, so that those conditions are kept, the economy is stabilized, and the masses don't feel the heat of that also?
Okay, so for this, first of all, we need to understand what an IMF program does, right? So why is it so important? It's important because it's sort of a certification of an economy that this, naturally people go to IMF when the economy is in big trouble, right? And there are concerns that it may go under. So IMF certification says that, okay, this country or this economy has a plan. It's a workable plan. We have looked at the plan and we are working with this country. And if the country follows this plan, it will come out of the troubled waters, right? So this gives satisfaction to everyone. Now that program in itself is prescriptive enough, right? So we call them conditionalities, but essentially these are prescriptions. So the prudent measures that you were saying, so in my personal opinion, there are enough prudent measures there in the IMF laid out program. So if we just follow them, so we would come out fine. Where our ingenuity or creativity is required is in taking other initiatives to boost the economy, right, or boost the factors of production. Dr. Shah was just talking about it. So we need to create investment, whether it's local investment, so the economy keeps on going. We create new avenues of revenue. So one thing is, again, my personal opinion, so while there's a lot of focus on tax generation, so there are two ways of tax generation. So if our economy grows more, there are more businesses, so they also generate more income, so our taxes naturally would increase. So we would benefit from that. So I personally feel that we need to take these steps. And lastly, what I would say is, one interesting example was that when the finance minister was taking over as the finance minister, Mr. Aurangzeb. So one thing he mentioned was, in Pakistan, one of the problems is all of the money gets dumped into the real estate sector. So all the investment anyone has to do, they will just, we understand that. People buy a file or something like that. People won't invest in stock market. People won't invest in creation of a new factory. So that real estate is not doing a lot. Yes, it's a good sector. It impacts a lot of industry. It creates a lot of employment, but it's not really generating. Now, if, for example, people would start investing in entrepreneurs or existing companies that export, right? So suddenly our export base would increase. We would be earning a lot more foreign exchange. So I think the government has time while it's implementing the IMF program. For example, management of SOEs, wherever we are bleeding. At the same time, we also work on creating new revenue streams.
So how to not make the masses feel the heat if there are stringent conditions being met on the way during this 37 months period?
You see, we have also Dr. Saab, so he can comment on ideas. So, for example, an interesting idea was that IMF is not saying exactly you price your petrol like this or that, right? So IMF essentially saying that.
But that is dependent on the international fluctuations.
So there are two things, right? So one is international prices, the other the revenue that we need to generate, right? Same goes for electricity. Now, when the pricing of the petrol went too high, the consumption also went down. So during the last PDM government, right, so there was this one point in time, there was this discussion that the consumption has, when the prices shot up, the consumption went down so much that the revenue generated from the fuel levy was rather too less. And so it's basically demand supply economics, right? So at times, so I think those are the creative avenues, right? So maybe, and I think PIDE should be brought in to play a bigger role. In terms of those ideas, because economists can model these better, that that if we drop the price of petrol by 15 rupees, maybe the consumption goes up, so the revenue collection, it more than offsets. So there are these kind of things where people will get relief, economy will start going more aggressively, and tax collection will also be increasing, and IMF will have no objection. IMF wouldn't have objection if we are meeting our economic parameters, right? So if in case we do not have deficits, so IMF, I don't think IMF would have issues. I think
Dr. Farooq, what's your take regarding this particular point? Then I'll come to that earlier point that you made regarding the mobilization of the domestic investment.
Yeah, first, that on regarding oil prices, that right now we have the leverage, because right now prices are around, that 70.
Dollars per barrel.
Yeah. So even if prices these goes to around 100, that dollar, still we ensure the competitiveness, but it should not go beyond, that 100. So right now we have some $2 billion cushion due to these prices, but yes, absolutely, if they go beyond 100, then that leverage would, that reduce. Second, sorry.
The point that you earlier made in your last take regarding the mobilization of the domestic resources, the establishment of SIFC to mobilize the foreign direct investment.
So
what
that
about it?
SIFC is mainly focusing, that on that international investment, and they have a quite clear agenda that how we can improve agriculture competitiveness, productivity, that and many other areas. But on domestic resource mobilization, that we are facing the challenge, and that is simple two things. One is that our current account is a deficit. So for current account surplus, that we require exports, and for exports, that we have to focus on agriculture, we have to focus on industry, and especially we have to focus on IT sector. And whenever we say that we have to focus on these sectors, we require investment in these areas. So right now we have to mobilize resources from real estate, and you know that right now that is not that level of real estate that we see in that Dubai, etc. So this is real estate that is just plot sale and purchase.
What's the next?
So on the next, I think first that we have to push stock market, that people invest in stock market, companies enlist in stock market. Second, that we have to focus, government have to focus on ease of doing business, and especially that lot of that government act as a that regulatory authority.
Very important points made. Unfortunately, I have to cut you short over here. I have to end the show over here. Because we're short of time. Dr. Shujat Farooq, Chief of Research, Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Mr. Sultan Ali Haider, political economist, thank you very much for your time also, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.